Okay, back in the shop. I don't have enough time to always do the video when I'm doing all the work, so I've spent some time. As you notice, I've got all the float and tape done. I'm not a professional floater and taper drywall guy, but this is all in the drying process. I'll do a little bit of sanding to knock this down, and then I'm gonna get some paint. The fact is I got 4 different colors of Oops paint that we got for $15. One of those paints is an exterior paint, and it regularly priced $56 or something like that. So, you know, when they mix the wrong color, people don't like the color, they'll throw them on the shelf and get rid of them for cheap. And so I didn't care what kind they were because it's a workshop, and we'll have to see how that works out. I thought it was most interesting that I got more questions about this little air conditioning unit than I did anything. Nobody asked me how I did the electrical. Nobody asked me how I did the evacuation of the lines and taking care of all that stuff. They weren't really worried about that. They wanted to know, how did it work? What was its cost? Things like that. It was $400 on Amazon. There were some other associated costs with that, like buying the vacuum pump and some other things. It was less than $600 to put this in. The manual on it is a few pages long, so there's not a lot of instructions on how it works, but I did discover today when I had it running, when I was out here working and had it running, that the inside unit will go to a low fan when it gets to the temperature it needs to. It went to a low fan, and the outside unit turned off because it was actually at temperature. So it kind of works like a regular HVAC system in that sense, whereas it's not like the window unit that was there where it's running all the time, or it's not. The remote is what has most of the features on it. That's where you can tell where everything is, changing it. Temperature wise, I mean, doing lots of stuff, everything is on the remote. So the remote will be handy. I won't want to lose it, because if you don't have the remote, now that is the downside. If you don't have the remote, there's no buttons on this thing at all. So I don't know that if the remote dies, I don't know how I'll get it to work. So hopefully the remote won't die. They do have an app for it, but I'm one of these guys that, for an app that needs to control an air conditioner, they don't need to have access to my contacts and my pictures and my camera and all the other things on my phone. An app just needs to control this, and so I didn't install the app. So hopefully the remote will keep working and I won't have any issues with it. So what I'm gonna do out here tonight is get started on the cleanup, and I'm gonna start moving stuff around, see if I can get my oven moved over in the corner and get other things moved around so I can start figuring out how I'm gonna have everything set up once I get everything painted and cleaned up. Well, you know how there are those times where you have to make a mess in order to clean up a mess? Well, that's where I am now. I'm in the process of taking my old bench top, which was just 3 2x12s glued together, or 2x8s or whatever they were, but they were glued together. But when they glued them together and put them on the countertop the last time, there was a considerable warp, especially in one corner, but throughout pretty much the whole length of a 12-foot countertop. I made this little sled for my router, and it is not the typical sled that you would find on all the videos on YouTube, because there's no rails. The rails are actually part of the sled, and I just slid it along the floor because it doesn't have to be that perfect. Took off the majority of the high spots, and now I'm working with a hand plane to get it smooth. And personally, I think it's coming along really nicely. So you can see some of the high spots and the low spots. The high spots are the really light wood that's taken off all the varnish, and the low spots are where there's still varnish. I'm not going to worry about it too much, because at this point I'm just going to be shaving it down with the plane, and then I'll probably refinish it in some way. Alright, so I'll continue to work this, get it as smooth as I can, get out all the router marks, and then get out the belt sander and sand it down, and then put it over on the countertops. I've decided to save some money and reuse my old cabinets. Yes, I know I didn't really want to have cabinets. I want to have an open shelving system, but I figured with this big giant piece of wood for our countertop and my good workbench, I may as well put it on a couple of cabinets at a counter height. I mean, it won't be that big of a deal. And then I can get open shelving, and I can use the rest of the pegboard put the rest of the shop back together. So when we picked up the table and put it up on the cabinets here to start sanding it, you can see how much curve this board had in it. Because now it's relatively flat on top, but you can see where the board went up and you can see how thin it is on this side. So I'll have to put shims on when I actually mount it to the counter bases, to the cabinets, but you can see how thin it is because that's how much I had to shave off, because that's how warped this board was. And that's how it goes sometimes. These belts just don't last forever, and unfortunately that was the last one I had. So I guess I'll be doing the rest by hand, or I'll get another palm sander. But fortunately I think I was right to the end, and for a workbench that's good enough. Okay, so there's 2 walls painted. I'm going to end up painting the other 2 walls probably the green, and that leaves me with a tan and kind of a, I don't know what color it's called, but it's kind of a dark salmon color. And I think I'm gonna have some fun with that color when we get down the road. I'm gonna get these other walls painted. I put in the shelf the other day and have already stacked it up full of all of the stuff that's gonna go in here because I don't have the other shelves yet. I have all of this pegboard here that I think I'm gonna take and cut it down in strips and laminate it together to give myself some shelves so I don't have to go out and purchase anything else. Probably gonna have to purchase some framing, so I'll probably go with 2x3s because I want stuff that's small and lightweight, because my shelves, I think I'm only gonna make them 12 inches wide for many of the things that go up on the walls and in the shelves, and then my tools and hand tools and things like that will easily fit on a 12-inch shelf. And then we'll see if those shelves even work. I don't know if they'll work, but I mean, it's kind of like laminating plywood, right? We'll see. There's the other couple of walls painted. I went with the green on these other 2 walls just because I think it goes well with the blue. And when you're buying paint that is already pre-mixed, because it's so cheap, you just use what colors they have, and so that's what I have. I am going to fix these cabinets with the other colors, and that's going to be more fun. But for now, this is where I am, and to me this is actually starting to look like a proper workshop. I've got the spray booth in place, I've got the oven in place, and now it's just getting to the point where I'm going to be cleaning up and making it all come together. Really liking the way that this workspace is coming out. So if you want to see where it ends up, stay tuned.